Kings Island opened in 1972, followed by Kings Dominion in 1975. They're mere replicas of each other, but the similarities are different. How do they compare? Hello, everyone. Alongside Ryan Sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans, because that's who we are and that's who we care about. Hey, let's kick this off by thanking our Prestige members. Thank you so much, Miss Mandy, 1983, Lil Mac, 21, Brian Hauser, 330T, Logan Lipper, Aaron Bort, Jacob Fix, Damon Barnes, Stephen Hornack, Eric Grau, Ian Crawford, Dustin Jackson, Song Shasmiku, Dakota Cole, and Lack Ray. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the Prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to the content, exclusive videos, exclusive live streams, and some tiers can get some free stuff. So hit that link in the description.
So, Ryan, I was at the American Coaster Enthusiast Spring Conference, the two parks that had covered Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and Kings Dominion. While I was at Kings Dominion, several different attendees came up to me and said, they loved the podcast and that. And they said, hey, you guys should do an episode comparing Kings Island and Kings Dominion. And I said, we can do that. So this one's for you, all of those that wanted that comparison. But Ryan, you've been to Kings Dominion, right?
Several times, yeah.
There are the similarities, but it is a lot different. So let's start with International Street. And when you enter the two parks, definitely a lot different. You have a lot more trees at Kings Dominion. It's a lot more lush with the landscaping. But Kings Island, being a little bit more wide open, I think that is a little bit more of a grand entrance because you see the Eiffel Tower better without as many trees kind of blocking it. At the front of the park, they have it built up at Kings Dominion in front where they have the ID sign and that, but you don't see the fountain like right away. It's kind of blocked a little bit because of that little hill that they built in front of it. But overall, I really like the way, with the buildings and the trees and all the shade. I really like the way Kings Dominion's International Street looks.
Do you like their fountain or our fountain better? Because both of which have been renovated. Which one do you like better?
I kind of like theirs a little bit. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because of all the trees around it. That the setting makes it stand out a little bit more, perhaps. But, they're both good. But I think the one thing with Kings Island not being as heavy with the trees, they can do more things, with the nighttime shows and, doing things off the buildings and that with the lasers that you can't really do at Kings Dominion. But if you're looking for shade, you're looking for something that's just a nice, quiet setting. The music, I think, was better at Kings Dominion. It fit the atmosphere a little bit better than what you hear at Kings Island. So I'm going to give the edge to Kings Dominion for International Street.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. You know what song I'm talking about. They only have 3 songs in the play. Now, they're good songs, but we need more than 3. Yeah,
but, but a lot of people, one thing, though, different, you have a lot more people on International Street at Kings Island throughout the day. Because of the different, entries to the different lands, different areas at Kings Island, the way that's laid out. This one, you have to go all the way down almost before, toward the Eiffel Tower before you split off in the different areas. So you don't really, people come in, but they don't come back out, back up on International Street. They're ready to leave. So I think that's one of the differences too. You see more people on International Street in the middle of the day than you would at Kings Dominion.
Yeah, that was one of the big design flaws that Dennis Spiegel talked about when he was on the Attractions Group podcast with us, because people aren't funneled through International Street in the way that they are at Kings Island. It destroys the shops.
Right.
They don't make the revenue that they would at Kings Island. But it's funny because I noticed that too. There aren't a whole lot of people on International Street in Kings Dominion. While at Kings Island, if the park's busy, you better believe International Street is busy as well. But that's neither here nor there. That's a hard decision. I would say I like the technology that Kings Island has, with all the lights and the lasers and stuff like that. But as far as look and feel is concerned, Kings Dominion with the lush trees and stuff, that probably has the edge for me.
Yeah, that's what kind of puts it over the top for me. It just has that, nice laid back feeling. And I think that's why the fountain works better for me there, is just because of the setting, with the trees.
I think the fountain seems a little bit more grandiose there. It doesn't have the pedestals in the middle. It never did. But it does have the water features in the middle that are big and like luscious, and they shoot high and stuff. So
they shot high, that's for sure.
A lot of the critiques of the quote unquote new found of Kings Island is that it just doesn't feel as grand as the old one. And while I like the fact that it can dance and do this and that, the reality is it does seem like it's a trickle in a giant reflecting pond at this point. So
Yeah.
I see the argument for that.
Yeah. Now, Kings Island, when you come into the front gate, you're immediately drawn, to the fountain and the Eiffel Tower. Where I felt at Kings Dominion, I was immediately drawn to the ID sign,
Hmm.
because like I said, it's built up more right in front of the fountain there. And then, you have to kind of peer through the trees. Then you see the tower, back there. But, both are excellent, and while similar, they do offer a different experience for you.
Let's talk about the roller coaster lineup.
I think they both have great roller coaster lineups. When you look at Kings Island, there's the iconic ones, with the Beast. You got the Racer, Mystic Timbers, three great wooden roller coasters. Diamondback, great ride. Orion, great ride. You got good kids coasters. But then at Kings Dominion, I mean, they're not far behind. The Grizzly with the track work,
Yeah.
that was running amazing. I couldn't believe how well that was running. Again, props to the Gravity Group for doing their thing. But that ride was good enough that, where it might have been outside my top 25, 30 of wooden coasters after riding it during the spring conference. I mean, it's pushing to be a top 10. I mean, I really loved that ride. I thought it was running phenomenal. Got a couple of good pops of airtime on it. So really impressed with that. Racer 75, similar to the Racer, again, different. It doesn't do the split, going into after the fourth hill. You can really notice the reprofiling on the Racer now because hills 2 and 3 on the Racer now take you up a little bit higher than what you now experience in Racer 75. They don't have the trim brake going around the turnaround on Racer 75, so it goes flying around there. And it still has that final dip before you go into the station. You go down into a tunnel before you pop up into the station. So I really like that. It was running really well. Definitely needs a paint job. So, when you get to the top of the lift hill and you look out and, see the ride, you can definitely tell that, paint is needed. But if it was red, white, and blue, vibrant, I mean, it would look stunning, just like the Racer does. But I would give the edge a little bit to the Racer. I don't really like uh, how they have you enter from the opposite side that you do at Kings Island. So where you're exiting, you're entering at Kings Dominion. It doesn't have the queue house like the Racer has. It did at one time when it first opened, but now they're sending you, through this long path, wooden path, wooden fence all the way around it. Probably put more wood into that than they did the ride. We were joking about that, how much wood was in that. But it's a long walk to get on the ride. It's a long walk to get off the ride. You just can't keep circling around like you can on the Racer if you want to rack up some rides. But both running great, but slight edge to the Racer, just because there's some differences in that make a difference, like the split after the fourth hill.
So
I thought the steel coasters, though, Dominator,
yeah,
fantastic ride. You've got the new ride, Rapterra, unbelievable, wing coaster, launch wing coaster. I was very impressed with that.
what
Yeah,
about Intimidator 305 versus Orion? Where would you?
I would take 305, which is, wasn't running. It's still, they've renamed that, but they're waiting to finish up some things there. I know that they were still pouring some brick pavers around it, the area outside of it. So once that opens back up, I prefer that ride.
Yeah. Cool.
But really, really impressed with Rapterra, the theming around that. You got Toombeely there, but Jungle Expedition. I mean that that whole section. I mean, it looks fantastic. Really, really well done. The theming with Rapterra, well done. The ride itself, it makes you wish you had that ride at Kings Island. But why not put that in the Vortex spot, right? It would work there. Just a great visual. Even those that weren't wanting to ride the ride, enjoyed watching it. And that's another thing too. I mean, so there's value there. If you're a photographer, you love shooting photos and video of that ride. So they definitely have a winner on their hand, and it's going to be a strong competitor for best new ride. But I think overall the roller coaster connection or collection, I think you have to give the edge a little bit maybe to Kings Island, just because of the iconics with the the Beast and the Racer plus Diamondback. I think makes it a tough. Although it's close, it's really close, closer than you would think.
Yeah. What about the flat rides?
Flat rides, it's Kings Dominion. They
Yeah.
have
Kings
more.
Island's always lacked.
Yeah, they have more of them. They have the Ferris wheel there that called Americana, which came from Jaga Lake. So
Mm.
they have that. They have the traditionals, the carousel, the flying eagles. They have other things throughout Candy Apple Grove, antique cars. The old type. A lot more room in there to ride. They definitely have the better flat ride collection than Kings Island.
I like their flat rides there. Yeah, I really like their Windseeker actually. You can see just endless trees from the top. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, their Windseeker's really good. Drop Tower's good. Um, they're in good spots in the park, so you like that part of it.
Hmm.
But there's a lot. Like if you're not a roller coaster fan, but you want to have fun riding rides. I mean, there's a lot to do at Kings Dominion.
Yeah. What about the kids areas? Kings Island is the former Golden Ticket Award for World's Best Kids Area. Kings Dominion never took home that honor. How do you think they compare in 2025?
I think that I've always liked Kings Dominion's kids area. I've always wondered, just how good it is and how few people talk about it. I like that there's a lot of shade in their kids area. I like that there's a lot more photo ops. They've got the sculpts and different things in there that make for great photo ops. I like the way the gift shop looks. I think that really pops and stands out with the entrance to that. I To me, I always, the last 4 or 5 years, I always thought that that one was on par with what Kings Island has. I think some of the things that I liked up, with the shade and it's not a lot of concrete. You don't see a lot of concrete. You just see a lot of grass, a lot of shade, a lot of landscaping. And the rides that they have are good. They don't have a Snoopy's Soapbox Racers, but I think they're something like that away from having the better kids area for sure. I mean, it's right there with Kings Island. Doesn't take a back seat to it. But I think if they were to get something like that, or something that like Carowinds is getting in the kids area this year, then I think it can certainly surge up the charts and compete for that one of those top spots.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm kind of agnostic when it comes to the ride selection because I don't have kids, and by the time I visited Kings Dominion, I was an adult, so I wouldn't really ride it. But I will tell you, from a look and feel standpoint, I really feel like Kings Dominions definitely feels better. It's covered with trees. The water feature, it's got tons of water features.
Tons of water. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it feels better. You're right. But Kings Island does have in total rides. Looks like they have a few more there, but it's beautiful at Kings Dominion. With the water and the landscaping, the trees, the benches, just really nice. And I think I really wish more people would talk about it because it's really well done.
What about, speaking of Planet Snoopy, or well, kids areas in general, because we have a couple different names from now. Which Boo Blasters do you prefer?
I liked King's Dominions better. I think it's the setting. It looks like you're going more into a house with it. I thought some of the different props inside looked like there was a little bit more things going on than you have at Kings Islands. But they're close. There's not a lot separating the two. I just from the outside I like King's Dominions better. But they're pretty close.
See, from the inside, the outside is fine. Again, you got the bridge that goes over the water and stuff,
Yep.
and that I really like that at King's Dominion. But the thing that puts King's Dominion up for me is that the guns actually shoot lasers. So
Yes,
like
they
it
do.
is kind of like a game of skill where you can shoot stuff even like in the next room or whatever. Like Boo Blasters at Kings Island and even the Gobbler Getaway don't have that. So you're kind of just shooting until the target disappears. Well, when you're shooting lasers, you can like try to aim it and
Yeah.
stuff. And I just think it's way more fun that way.
Yeah. The gun worked. I mean, it was there wasn't any problem with the guns. Nothing working there.
Yeah. So let's talk about the two different Flight of Fears, both of which are not looking like they did in '96 when they opened.
No, they don't. I mean, you have to give the edge to Kings Islands here. I think, especially now with the the pre-show, what they've done with the lighting and everything at Kings Island. I think that one, puts it ahead. The ride experience itself, feels about the same, but I think the pre-show and just it just more, it just is more to it, to talk about than just the ride.
Well, and I mean, I assume I pulled this photo. I don't know what the one at King's Dominion looks like, but I pulled this photo off the internet. Hopefully, this isn't finished because it looks like a U-Haul storage place. My understanding, I've heard that they have big plans to like completely retheme it. Now, whether it'll still be Flight of Fear, it'll still be Aliens or whatever, I don't know. But for now, I think the outside people were excited because it was a fresh coat of paint, much like how people were excited because Italian Backlot Stunt Coaster has new billboards now, but they took away the entire personality by painting it so it looks nice now. But once the novelty wears off, you're going to be nostalgic for the old one, and that's going to be the same with the Queen City Stunt Coaster. When it looks nice now because we got new billboards, but they sacrificed the best part of the ride, the climax of the ride,
Right.
for a kind of like creatively bankrupt idea of basing it off of Cincinnati itself.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, I think they did a great job at Kings Island with, what they did with it this year with the pre-show and the lighting, everything involved before you ride. So I think that enhances the experience and gives it the edge.
Yeah. So you talked about Racer 75 a little bit before, but go into a little bit more detail. Like, so Gravity Group did their track work on that as well, right?
They did, but like I said, it's running great. I really like that it still has that final, dip before you go into the station. Um, I, the trains, I think the padding feels a little more comfortable it's a little softer at King's
Mm-hmm.
Dominion. But overall, though, I mean, it's they both run great. They're both, they both have that nostalgia, to it. I got my 300th lifetime ride while I was
Hey.
there on Racer 75. So my first ride on it came in 1984. I had there was an Ace Summer Conference was there in 1992, and one day I just kept going through, and I ended up riding it 52 times that day. But yeah, I knocked off my 300 lifetime ride on it. I thought, since 1984, those were my best rides on it. Just how good it was running. Running a lot better than it was when I was there, like in 2018, 2019. So you could definitely, tell that the track work had been done. Uh, I just, wish they would give it a paint job, especially since this was their 50th anniversary. I think that would have been an added touch for it. But I've always preferred the racer at Kings Island, not just because it was my home park or anything, just a couple of elements to that I always felt gave it the edge, which was coming off the fourth hill, that split. And you used to get more airtime on the racer, and I still think you do. I felt that I still got a little bit more airtime on the racer, where it has a few of those moments. But I did like the fact that going around the turnaround. I mean, you fly around that on Racer 75.
Yeah. Cool. The dining experience. Now, you sent me a picture from their Grain and Grill. Are these grilled chicken tenders?
They're not chicken tenders. It's it was grilled chicken.
Okay.
And it was fantastic. One of the best meals that I've had at a theme park. The mac and cheese was really good. I didn't, I thought I was going to order the sirloin,
Mm.
and I saw the person before me got 3 pieces of chicken. I thought you might only get 2, but they
Right.
gave them 3. They were fresh. They had just been brought out. The mac and cheese, like I said, was really good. So there's a difference in in their menu at Grain and Grill than there is at Kings Island. If I was, that was my home park, I'd be eating at Grain and Grill all the time. This was a fantastic meal. Like I said, one of the best that I've had in the theme park industry. So I give them the edge for Grain and Grill, but overall, I give the edge to Kings Island. They've got the firehouse barbecue at Kings Dominion. Very good, but I still give the edge to Coney Barbecue there. There wasn't anything like a Miami River Brew House. They weren't having pub burgers or anything like that. But you're gonna, if you're going to look for a place to eat at Kings Dominion, I highly recommend Grain and Grill. Um, I was blown away by it, and I had a lot of different people after I made a post about it tell me that yeah, they preferred the menu there too, and they were disappointed in Kings Island. They were originally excited about it, based on what they had seen at King's Dominion the year before, and they've been disappointed the last couple years at Kings Island. But I thought it was a fantastic meal, and that's where I would go if you were going to Kings Island. But the food I had, at the Firehouse Barbecue, I had the brisket, which was very good. The chicken tenders. My friend Jess, who was with us, he's a friend of the show, a member. He got the chicken tenders and thought, they were excellent too. So there's a lot to like about that location.
Yeah. So for me, I ate at the Mexican restaurant at the front of International Street, immediately on the left when you enter the park, like 3 different times when I went there. I really like that. Yeah, the Grain and Grill thing bothers me because I was one of those people that was like super stoked when I found out that Kings Island was getting Grain and Grill, and it's not the same thing as King's Dominions. It's just not nearly as good.
Not
And
even close.
the menu is very benign. It's 4 things. They had a couple of different options, different breads and stuff, and then they made it just naan or whatever.
Yeah, the portion size too. I thought, what I got at the different places at King's Dominion. I mean, they were pretty good sizes. But overall, I have to give, there's more variety at Kings Island, so I have
Yeah.
to give them the edge between the two parks when it comes to food and beverage. But at Kings Island, there's not a better meal than what I had at Grain and Grill.
Hmm. All right. The atmosphere and the charm of the park.
Well, you have the nighttime experience at Kings Island. I think that adds a lot, to the atmosphere with the fireworks shows. On nights the park closes at 10. You get the lasers and stuff. I think overall, I like the atmosphere at Kings Island. Both have a lot of charm. I think because of the trees, the landscaping, all the water features and that around the park. Uh, you know, I would say that there's a little bit more charm to Kings Dominion. It feels a little bit more old school, like how the parks felt when they first opened. They really haven't done much to destroy that, there. So, there's definitely a lot more, flowers. There's a lot more obviously trees, um, the pathways and stuff. It's just a more of a charming feeling, and just the front of the buildings and different things through International Street, uh, and the different areas of the park. It just looks more old school to me, and I like that.
I do too. I do like that it's, again, I mean, King's Dominion, if you put them side by side, I always felt like it had more charm because the trees are bigger and it
Mhm.
seems older and all that kind of a lot of the stuff that you highlighted. But again, I mean, you look at the picture on your right with this. I mean, that's showing Kings Island during haunt and just all the spotlights and the uplighting on International Street and so on. Like that's Disney-esque magic in a lot of cases. So that would be a tough. I would say, like, as far as if you're walking through a park during the day, maybe King's Dominion has a little bit better of a feel with the trees and the shade and so on. But at night, I mean, there are very few parks that are going to top Kings
Yeah,
Island.
yeah. At night, Kings Island with the lights, on the buildings and the nighttime show. Just how things are lit up. Yeah, Kings Island definitely has the edge at night. But overall, if you're talking about the daytime experience, and you're also in an area, where you have Busch Gardens down the road, voted the
Mhm.
most beautiful park in that it's nice to see that it has that kind of charm to it. They haven't ripped out all the trees and replaced it with just concrete and every other corner didn't have a bar,
Yeah.
place to get drinks and that. It was just kind of like I said, it just felt like it didn't feel much different than it did in a lot of ways. Than when I first was there in 1984, which is a good thing. They've been able
Sure.
to add all this new stuff but keep the charm. And when you look at the, Ryan, when you go and you see that new area, that they've done, Jungle Expedition. It just looks amazing. Just such a great job with that.
I have seen Jungle Expedition, just not Raptera. So they had
Okay.
Jungle Expedition last time I went. So I know exactly what you're talking about, and it is the best themed area.
Did you ride
Uh,
Toonbilly?
oh yeah, I love that ride.
You're the one that loves it, right? Okay.
I really
Uh,
do enjoy it. No, my first ride was better than my second ride, but I remember, going up the lift hill, and then you go down that little hump at the very top, and we started essentially upside down, and that was so crazy and so freaky. But
There, I was around, several people. It was at night during the night ERT, and we're sitting and we're talking. That was one of the great things about the ACE Spring Conference too. It wasn't just ride, ride, ride. It was the camaraderie, and just
Mhm.
reconnecting with people and meeting new people and just talking about different things, But I said, somebody had mentioned about that ride. They didn't see why, they thought that was a good idea. And I said, yeah. I said, who sits in a room? I said, whoever decided for that ride probably didn't ride it, because it's just one of those things that for a lot of people, it's one and done. It looks good, takes great pictures. But for me, it's not a ride that's repeatable. Maybe your mileage is different, Ryan, and you can ride it more often than that. But for me, it's a one and done type ride, but it fits the area, it really fits the area there. But they've done a great job, and that whole area looks great. And it looks like it's been there all the time. It's amazing how parks do that. They add a new section of that, and it looks like it's always been there. And it doesn't take away from the charm of the park. It blends right in.
I think that Tumbili is a fantastic addition. And I'm not even saying that from somebody that enjoyed the ride. I'm saying that from somebody that can look at it and be like, they installed a ride for the cost of an expensive flat ride, and they can say they got a roller coaster and market it as a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I think that if it gets the acceptance and the ridership of a, $6-7 million flat ride, then they've done well with it. So that, I think that's the pocket that they were shopping out of.
Yeah, I just didn't see many people getting back in line and wanting to re-ride. They get off the ride. Hey, let's go ride this now.
How many people like circle around with Shake, Rattle, and Roll though? Or, it's just, I feel like it's a roller coaster kind of in name only.
Okay.
It serves the function of a flat ride. And
It does.
if it was $25 million, yeah, you'd be absolutely right. But I think that, for the cost of those things, and they're cheap because Legacy Six Flags put in 1 million of them. But
Yeah, they did. They
uh,
did.
I really think that it served the function that it needed to serve. It's just well liked enough to make it worth the money. And it was intriguing. It was visual, and they probably sold tickets with it if they did it correctly. Let's talk about the Prestige Lounge, the VIP Lounge.
Oh, well, Ryan, let me put it this way. I had an opportunity to visit the VIP Lounge at King's Dominion. They were nice enough to let me in to take a look around. And if Kings Island's VIP Lounge was as nice and offered what this one does, I would have Prestige.
I would too.
I mean, this is amazing. You had the chairs, the couches, you had TVs, you had a double, 2 levels. They had a deck upstairs. You could go out, you could look down at the people below. And, they had on the outside, you could look out and see the water and stuff. And you could also get drinks in there. And I'm talking the soft drinks, the Coke products, the Powerade, water. You didn't have to use your drink plan to get it.
Yeah.
So you could go in, get soft drinks, the chips, all the different things that were near the Doritos, and that were the bigger size bags. It wasn't the small little bags; they were the bigger bags. And it was just such a comfortable place. And I looked around and saw some people in there, and they seemed to really be enjoying it. That was added value.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to upgrade your pass to Prestige. Kings Island, you're still sitting outside. It looks nice, but you get water, but you don't get the soft drinks. You get the smaller bags of chips. It's just night and day with it. The one at Kings Island is not going to put me over the top to upgrade to Prestige. With that being my home park, I just would not see any value, really much difference between sitting in there or, go sitting on the patio behind Coney Barbecue. To me, there's just not a lot of difference there with it. But King's Dominions, I mean, you could spend a lot of time in there. I mean, you just sit on the couch and you're like, oh, I could get used to a place like this.
So just one more comparison, just for the people watching on YouTube: King's Dominions, King's Islands.
Yes.
King's Dominions, Kings Islands looks like it's King's Dominions in the first few days of construction.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
looks
If
like it's
I
been.
was, yeah, but again, if that was my home park, I would certainly upgrade to Prestige. The parking situation for Prestige was really good. Close to the park, easy to get in and out of. There was a lot to like about it. No
So,
question, who has the better Prestige lounge?
oh yeah, and I mean, honestly, it's like I feel like at Kings Island, and I've said this before. It feels like that you spend extra money on this pass so they see you as a fool rather than like the most loyal possible guest. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, but I mean, there
We've
was
got
so
a
much. Yeah, there's so much. I mean, it really is added value to upgrade to Prestige if you're going to be going to King's Dominion multiple times. I mean, there's no question about it. You just felt good. You would feel good about doing it. And I kind of was like, man, I would definitely. I told even the people there, if this was my home park, I have Prestige.
Yeah. Did you? So you worked with their digital media specialist, digital media manager, I suppose, Kyle Kruthoff,
Yes,
for a couple years at Kings Island. Did you see him?
3 years.
3 years. Yeah.
What did you say?
I said, did you see Kyle?
Yes. I was waiting outside the Flying Eagles for the people I was with to finish their cycle on it, and just sitting on the bench there, and I saw him coming down, the midway there, and I know that he saw me, and as he got closer, he just kind of, looked straight ahead and just walked right on by. Not even hi, not how you doing, nothing.
Mm.
Just walked right on by.
Sounds that must be the protocol for the digital media managers at the parks because I feel like you had a similar experience with someone else.
I
Hey,
did, but it is what it is, Ryan. With that, and uh, I mean, who knows if I'd have just said hi, what that would have ended up, you know, being, said I did this or that or something. So I didn't even reach out to say hi. I just thought he might say hi because I know that he saw me, but he just kept walking by.
yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to some Tower Topics tidbits for your information.
All right. Well, when you look at the coaster stock T-shirt this year, I think you can really, see that the creative sparks were flying. With the design. Uh, what they did was they just used an existing design that had been out in multiple parks, and so they took that recycled design and turned it into the coaster stock shirt. Um, I heard from a lot of people who caught that, weren't pleased that they didn't put any real effort into it. People were posting pictures of every design that they'd had since 2015, and there was nothing really special about this that makes it different, than something you could buy in the gift shop. So I think that was a problem for several of the returners that have gone to this year after year. So a little dissatisfaction, with the shirts. There was also some grumbling about everyone in their materials received a picture frame that was outdated, from the Beast 40th anniversary, a product that the park couldn't sell, so they just gave them away. So with coaster stock just around the corner, a little bit of grumbling before the event begins.
I wonder if they'll top this off by letting him into Kings Island's wonderful VIP shelter. Yeah. So when I first saw the shirts, I remember there was like controversy around it. I remember looking at it and being like, "Oh, that looks all right. I don't see what the big deal is." And then I realized like that's why people are upset because some of them probably already own this shirt. You
Yeah, well,
know?
I saw it when I saw the design. I thought that looks familiar. Then people started messaging, sending me pictures and that, and saying, they just gave us a recycled shirt, and but I will say this:
Mhm.
if you don't have the original or the other design that's recycled and been at different parks, you could buy it at Cedar Point, among others. I think it's not the worst shirt that they've ever done for coaster stock. Is it the best? No, but I don't think it's the worst by any means.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Well, happy trails to Chad Showalter, the park spokesperson since October 16th, 2017. He was among those let go by Six Flags this week. The park or the chain continues to make a lot of cuts, and it's something that those cost synergies been promised to investors. So a lot of people, longtime employees and that have been paying the price since the merger took place. It's unfortunate. You hate to see people, lose their jobs. And I do remember when the merger was taking place that you and I, during an episode, we talked about how this would result in a number of people losing their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
That we said that, whenever there are mergers and acquisitions, this is what happens. And we had a number of people that said we were wrong. That's not going to happen. It's a Cedar Fair running the company. You're not going to see that. It included people who worked for the parks, that worked at Kings Island, saying that Tower Topics is wrong. That's not going to happen. It's different.
They always say that internally. It's nothing's changing.
Yeah.
Status quo. Nope. Never
Yeah,
is.
so Tower Topics is wrong, but I would like to, hear from some of those people now, that here we are, what, 6-7 months later, we've seen massive layoffs in different times. We saw some, happening in January. We saw some more in March. Now we saw another round. Some of the general managers have been replaced. They're not naming their replacements as either general managers or park presidents. They're getting the title of park manager and then VP of a certain area of the park. At the Cedar Point, for instance, Colleen Murphy Brady was named, taking over for the retired general manager, and she got park manager / VP of operations.
What a responsibility, by the way.
Yeah.
Being the manager of Cedar Point and the VP of operations of Cedar Point.
Yeah, so you're seeing a lot of that happening. So as you see some of the general managers, park presidents being phased out, they're bringing their replacements in at sorry about that, lower titles, and it just goes back to what you and I talked about, that there was going to be a lot of things happening. People were going to lose their jobs, all in the name of cost synergies, that have been promised to the investors.
Yeah. We wish everybody well that was affected by this. Our understanding that what we're hearing rumblings is the way that the managers thing is all the parks will have park managers, which are also VP of something.
Right.
And then there's a general manager that's over several parks. I know that Jeffrey Siebert is general manager over the Texas parks, including the Schlitterbahns. So it's funny that he's back there. But we right now, I don't think we know about Kings Island and what's going on with Mr. Kuntz, or who would be the general manager over the area. We can make our own speculation, but as of this recording, we don't know for sure what the future is with that.
No, got a bad cold from being 90 degrees when I was in Virginia, and then
it's all the humidity.
Yeah, well, then you come back and the hotel's cold, and you got air conditioned driving 8 or 9 hours. But yeah, again, happy trails to Chad Showalter. River Racers, billed as Ohio's only dual racing water coaster, and that's going to make its debut on Saturday.
Cool. I don't feel like we should drill into this because we've talked about it so much, but it opens Saturday, May 24th. So go have fun, and we'll have some feedback on it. But the bigger news happens.
Dress warm if you're going to Soak City this weekend. Dress warm.
Yeah, wear your coat on the ride because it's going to be like in the 60s. But tonight's one of the most exciting nights of the year for me, Don.
Why?
Because the fireworks show debuts Friday, May 23rd. The nightly fireworks show begins. So lasers, drones. We don't have a lot of information as of this recording, but we understand that it's
a couple days out, and there's nothing about it other, what's new about it or anything. Just that it's the nighttime fireworks show, and it begins tonight.
Totally cool with that. I'd rather know as little as possible, to be honest with you.
Yes.
All right. Let's move on to a segment we like to call Buy or Sell. So, Don, buy or sell? At the end of the 2026 season, Kings Island will announce a major ride closure without any notice to the public that it will be closed. Buy or sell?
I'm going to buy. The way
Okay.
it's going, the way they're doing all those cost synergies, yeah. Not only are there casualties with the uh, people losing their jobs, you're going to see that with, and we have seen that with rides closing, and with no announcement that that was going to happen.
I so it specifically says it says at the end of 2026. I would say if I had to bet on either it being 2025 or 2026, my money would be on 2025. If the option wasn't both, I think it'll be sooner than later. You know,
Yeah, I can see. I mean, I can see something at the end of the season going. I can see, another. This one says major ride though. Not just a ride, major ride. So yeah, I think I'm going to buy there, Ryan.
okay.
What about you?
Uh,
You buying?
I'm going to sell. I think we're going to lose something in the end of 2025 and maybe a major ride. And I think that whole thing, they're going to do it. Remember, it's not Operation Warp Speed. That
Right.
was the COVID thing, whatever they called it. But that was supposed to be a quick thing. They're going to get rid of all these rides, and then they're going to install new ones, and it's going to be over the course of a couple of years. So I think if anything gets removed from Kings Island that's major, it's going to be at the end of this year, 2025, rather than 2026. So I'm going to sell in that regard.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to some theme park headline news. Okay, the National Amusement Historical Association released the results of its 39th annual NAPHA Amusement Park and Attraction Survey, and Busch Gardens Williamsburg was named the most beautiful park for the 35th consecutive year. Some of the other attractions receiving top ratings in the survey include favorite traditional theme park at Knoebels, favorite theme park, which is Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, favorite wood coaster, Phoenix at Knoebels, that's in line with the Golden Ticket Awards. So that's favorite wood coaster is Phoenix at Knoebels, which is the 14th straight year of that. Favorite steel coaster is Millennium Force at Cedar Point and Sandusky.
I
Favorite
can
new
see that.
attraction, yep. Favorite new attraction, Six Flags Great Escape. I can't argue any
The
one of
Bobcat, yeah.
these. I can't.
No, no. I think this was. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue any of it. You're right.
Okay.
This is one
Yeah,
of the most long-standing and most credible polls that are out there.
yeah. I mean, if you look at it, most beautiful park, Busch Gardens Williamsburg has gone through what we're going through now. They've gone through over the past like 10 years, and it's still like just so naturally beautiful that it works.
35 years in a row.
35 years in a
But
row.
oh my, I mean it. I mean, I love that park. I just, just walking around, taking it all in, just looking at how beautiful it was. You wish that you live closer. So I could be there more often. I had a season pass in 1996, 97, and I always loved that park. Great food, good operations, everything about it. I mean, there's nothing to dislike about Busch Gardens, Williamsburg.
Yeah. Let's move on to the listener questions. First listener question, Jan from Ohio. She said, how do they count annual park attendance? Do they count per person or per visit? If I go 10 times, is it 1 for the year in their books, or is it 10 for the year in their books?
It every time you go, it counts. So if you go, 10 times, 50 times, 75 times, it's 75 visits that go into the books for them, or 75 people, visiting. So when they say they drew, say, over 3 million people, it wasn't 3 million unique people, that went. So yeah, I mean, every time you go, you add a number to that post. Same thing with sports teams. When they count their attendance, if you have season tickets and you go to all 81 home games, you count as 81 for the Reds.
Sure. Was there a key, like a KPI of any sense that was talking about how many unique people there are as opposed to how many visits?
I mean, those numbers were available in that, but they obviously aren't going to, they don't publish those numbers.
Right. Okay. Damon from Fort Wright, Kentucky. He said, was at the park this past Friday. We got there at 6. As soon as we walked in the gate, the TV screen changed from 9 p.m. to closing at 7:30 right in front of us. To say the least, I was a little surprised, even though the storms were forecasted. Storms barely clipped the park, but I know safety is a top priority as they were forecast to be much worse than they actually were. My question is, who makes the decision to close the park early And is there still a weather radar in a back office somewhere, or was that a false rumor?
The general manager or whoever is in charge that night, if the GM is not there, they have someone else that they call like Unit One. You're in charge of the park. They would make that call. They have to obviously get it cleared, through the leadership, up above. Uh, somebody that is like the regional GM would be Jason McClure. So they would reach out to him and say, hey, here's what the attendance is, here's what the forecast is. We'd like to close, and then they'll kind of agree on a time to do it. So it's done that way. There is a radar, weather in that they have at the park. It's very good. They are pretty accurate, with what they're able to predict. And when they see storms coming in, that's why sometimes you'll see a ride shutting down, and the sun's shining. It doesn't look like anything's happened, but they know in 20 minutes that something's going to hit, and they have a pretty high percentage of getting that right. And you're right, safety is the number one priority there. But there is that collaborative discussion, that starts with whoever's in charge, whether it's a GM that night or someone else, and they just make that decision and make the call on what they feel is best.
I don't disagree with their decision to close early on Friday, because the storms were not as bad as they said they were going to be, but they were predicted to be really bad. I take issue with the fact that their announcement, when they announced this at like 4:30, was that any unused ticket can be redeemed any day. So you're telling me if I walked in at 4:00 and I was supposed to have a 5.5 hour night, and now it's a 3.5 hour night, that I'm just SOL? I don't know.
They need some work on that. There's different things that you can do. That's what I like about Holiday World. They have that weather guarantee.
I think anybody that's in the park on a day when they close early, whether it's closing at 9 instead of 10 or 7:30 instead of 9, everybody should be able to come back. If you got a season pass, then sorry. But if you bought a ticket and you show up, you should get a return ticket. And I'm not even saying like the bad weather, what do they call it at Holiday World? It's like the severe weather guarantee or whatever.
Yeah, they have that weather guarantee. Yeah, that if you get rained out, that you get to come back.
Well, because I remember there was like FAQs on the website. You probably wrote it, where it was like, what do I do if it rains? It's like, well, you can shop, you can eat, you can see shows, stuff like that. And that's true. So, if you go and it's predicted to be rain, then, you're making that choice. But if the park closes early, they're making the choice to leave for you. So I think that if you're in the park on a day when they close early, that you should be able to return. However.
Right.
Okay. Next question. Karen from Erlanger, Kentucky. She said, a picture was given to me years ago by someone working at KI for a contractor, and was told to take some concrete and dump it in the woods behind either Banshee or Bat. All I can say is why? Why throw something like these old benches away rather than give them to a team or to a collector? The way that Great American Ballpark sold off the old seats. Cleaned up and painted, this would look nice in a shady garden. I'm sure this isn't the only time something like this has happened. We actually have a picture.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that's what she was talking about, but
yeah, we have the picture.
I have it somewhere. But why don't you tell? Okay, there it is.
Okay, so it's one of the Hanna-Barbera benches that used to be out.
Yeah. So why were they thrown into why were they thrown in a pile behind the park?
Well, space is at a premium, where you're going to store these things, but these do get circulated back into what the park would have every year for the full-time employees. It was for a charity event, and these would go up for auction, and they would raise a lot of money. The full-time staff would buy them. So they do get sold. They do get put in a nice place. They do repaint them before they go up on the auction block, but it's again, a full-time event that they have every year. So but why they put them out in the field or something, like I said, it's just the space. There's just not a lot of places to store things.
Do you know anybody that has one of these?
I do.
Okay. I was going to wonder if you were going to admit that. Okay. Yeah, you used to have it in your office for a long time, and now you have it at your house, right?
Yeah, I have. It's the Winnie Witch one.
the Winnie Witch one.
Yeah, it's at my house. It's a yard ornament right now. So
That's
it's
hey,
out.
that's a heck of a yard ornament.
It is. It is. It's really heavy. So it's hard to move around in that. But I was excited when I got it, uh, and getting it home was not fun. I can tell you that. We had to get a truck, and it took like 4 or 5 of us to lift it, get it on the truck, and then getting it back home. It was just like me and my wife and my daughter, trying to get it off the truck in the backyard and that. But it's a nice souvenir. And there's several of these out there. I know, different people that work at the park that, have gotten these over the years, and, eventually they're going to run out.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for the question. And thanks for that clarification, Don. If you've got your own questions, send them to us. Actually, send them to Don. Don't send them to me. I don't read a lot. Don Helbig at themeparksbydon.com. Include your first name, the city you're from, as well as your question, your comment, your critique, whatever. We'll talk about it on the show. If you don't want to do the email thing, then you can just send it to us on our X on Tower_Topics. Just send us a direct message. While you're there, hit that follow button. Don, tell them about the t-shirts.
Tower Topics t-shirts. They come in a wicked green color, available in any size shirt that you would need, including the youth sizes. They're $22. That includes your shipping. And if you're interested, that same address Ryan just gave out, Don Helbig at themeparksbydon.com, or you can message us on our X, Tower_Topics. We'll send you the QR code. And as soon as the transaction goes through, it only takes a matter of days before you get your shirt.
And if it's too hot to wear a shirt, you can get stickers. That was not a good transition.
No, we do have stickers. The sizes that are available, the 4.5 inch by 3 inch, they're $5 each. These are ideal for things like, tumblers and water bottles. And then we've got the 6.5 by 4 inch, $7 each. These work for like car windows and that. They're, good quality vinyl, kind of stickers. So if you want one of these stickers, same deal. Just message us. That price does include the shipping.
All right. Yeah, very cool. Yep. All right. Hey, I'm Ryan Sir. That's Don Helbig. Buy your silver pass. This is Tower Topics.